Ho ho ho, what's up everyone? Bill here for Classic Rock and Metal Review. Once again, you see me? Hanging out again. Happy holidays to everyone. Hope it's going well. This is the 7th video of Christmas. 7th of our 12 videos of Christmas. Brand new episode here. We'll see how it goes. I mean, I want to do it, so it's happening. Love you long time? Let's find out what brought this series about. Hopefully there'll be a series of these videos because I got a couple more in mind for sure. Reacquiring albums that I had back in the day that I hadn't heard for a long time. And, I have this memory of how great they were. And let's just see if it's correct or not. All right. I've done listening to this album lately again. Like I said, I went a long time without hearing it. I'll get more into how I got to this point with, reacquiring hundreds of things I had years ago. I'll explain all that briefly to you. But before we get started, if you can like or subscribe, that would be great. All right, guys. Just hanging out, loose little conversation here. Comments would be appreciated, man. I'd like to know how you guys feel about Under Lock and Key. So let me just quickly explain. I was super into metal in the 80s. I was there when it, new wave British heavy metal landed on the American shores, so to speak. Loved it to death. And I'm going to be honest with you, man. If you're a music fan, okay, not just a heavy metal fan, it was petering out by like 86, 87. It was just clones coming along of things that already existed. It was so oversaturated. It was like everyone was getting signed if you were a metal band. First I was grabbing it all and, you couldn't get enough. And then you did have enough. And then I started getting into like classic rock and things that were just a little more musically interesting. It's just growth. We all take our own musical journey, right? So that's mine. But the long story short is that I sold off hundreds of albums. I kept a few. And what's really a damn shame about it too, man, is that the ones that I still have, and I have albums from the early 80s still. Deep Purple, Perfect Strangers, things like that. They're in great condition. I don't even know how. I've moved 10 times since when I first moved out of my house when I was like 19 or so. And the albums, they have survived great. Those milk crates, man, they come in, they do a good job protecting those. Anyway, so it didn't even really take me that long either. I probably started purging that metal collection in the late 80s. And by like the early to mid 90s, I was trying to get them back again. Getting them on CD though, mostly so. This one though, I just got back a few years ago without hearing it for all that time. And here's why I want to do this episode. In my head, I remember I loved Dokken. I loved Tooth and Nail. Couldn't get into Breaking the Chains. Then this came out and I'm like, all right, yeah, this is pretty damn good too. Played the hell out of Tooth and Nail and this one. I love them both so much that I played Breaking the Chains 5 or 6 times, even though I didn't like it because I wanted to like it so bad. Anyway, I used to think that Tooth and Nail and this album were just about even. And with a nod to Tooth and Nail, with a gun to my head, had to pick one. But there were times I was back and forth on that. They're just as good as each other, or Tooth and Nails are just a little bit better. They were right there. So basically, I reacquired this a couple years ago. A year or two ago, I played it in the car. I just really was disappointed with it, honestly. But like I've said before, I never trust my first play, even though I heard this thing 20 times back in the day. So, played it again today. Got a full review of it, sort of, in a way, coming up. But Tooth and Nail, that is what we're asking here. Love you long time. Do I love it like I used to? Is everyone nice and warm here, man? It's kind of hot. Anyway, all right, so let's get into it. So, the thing with this album that hits you first off, and this was something that I noticed right away back in the 80s and so all of a sudden 84 comes around, everyone's got to be a pyromania, or trying to have one. Saxon with Crusader, the big chorusy thing. Judas Priest. Could there be any more echo on that snare drum on Defenders of the Faith, for God's sakes? And then, you get this in late 85, which I used to think this album was 86, but it's like November of 85. Anyway, same big sound kind of going on. Not as chorusy as like Crusader tried to be, but it's in there a little bit. Not as echoey a snare drum as Defenders of the Faith, but approaching it. All right, so that all aside, if the material's strong enough, the album will still be great. But I do have to preface it by saying it does have that sort of big 80s sound. You can see their look there. This album did great for them. I think it was their best seller. I'm not sure about that, but I'm almost certain of it. I also used to have that video. I think it's Unchained the Night, I think it was called. Purplish pink box. Maybe 8 videos on there. I was really into them, man. Anyway, so, the one thing too about Lynch, on Tooth and Nail. Why did I love that album so damn much? I mean, I never really even heard anyone say this, but I'm sure it's been said. I don't watch every show on YouTube. George Lynch's playing, man. He doesn't use those power chords or bar chords like so many other guitarists use. So many metal bands. He's using like, if you're a guitarist, you know what I'm talking about. He uses like a lot of 7th chords, even 9th chords. And just full-on regular guitar chords as opposed to bar chords. And he just does it so effortlessly. And the thing is, it's hard to make those chords sound heavy. They're just like funky versions of chords. Aren't really made to, to rock hard. But he pulls it off. Of course, his soloing's, amazing. So there's that. Anyway, can all that salvage this 80s sound and album? I mean, it's really going to come down to the songwriting. So let's go down the list real quick. Unchained the Night, loved it back then, love it now, I'll love it forever. I think that's a great song. The Hunter is also, I think, really good. Maybe not quite as good, but it's right there. I like that one a lot still. In My Dreams, it's a little more subdued. It's a little more on the pop side. But still metal and still heavy enough and catchy, When Dokken does mellower stuff or like mid-tempo stuff, still tends to be pretty catchy most of the time. There's a couple songs on Breaking the Chains like that. And there's a couple on Tooth and Nail. Slipping Away, I don't remember loving that song in the first place. I still think it's pretty good. What do we get next up? Lightning Strikes Again. Has anyone ever noticed besides me that Lightning Strikes Again is really the same exact sort of chord progression as Unchained the Night, just faster? It's still pretty good though. But I, just can't help but notice that. It's not, so on to side 2, all right? It's Not Love. Probably the biggest 80s chorusy kind of song that they were, on this album. And this was probably, and I used to love this song. This is probably the first one here nowadays listening to it that I don't think I really love, and I used to love it. So this one is definitely going to be sort of not what I remembered it being. I loved that whole like finger plucking, picking thing in the beginning of the song. That was kind of different for its time, for sure. Not enough to make me love it, I have to say, even though I used to. Jaded Heart was kind of, honestly, the rest of this album, I wouldn't remember from the titles. I'd have to hear them and have heard them, obviously. Pretty good. I like that one, too. And then from here on, I think that is where the album just kind of sort of, goes a little flat for me. And it did back then, but it's respectable enough. It's just not that great. Don't Lie to Me, Will the Sun Rise, mid-tempo stuff, and then Till the Living End, another super fast one. Super fast, but not super interesting or great to me, at least to my ear. So what's the verdict on this? Love You Long Time. I'd have to say no. It is not neck and neck with Tooth and Nail like I used to, which I remembered it being. Okay, so it was a little disappointing hearing this the first time I heard it, in a long time, like a year or two ago. Today, liked it more than then, but it is not a Tooth and Nail in my opinion. Maybe you guys feel differently. Still overall really good. It's not what this episode's about. It's about, is it what I remembered it being? And it's not. So it does start really strong. I'll tell you, up to like the 7th song, I was like, I think it is just about as good as Tooth and Nail. It's better than I thought from that listen a year or two ago. But it does end it ends too mediocre for me. So final verdict with Dokken Tooth and Nail. Do I love you long time? That would be a no. I like it a lot, but I remembered it being almost on par, or actually on par with Tooth and Nail, and that it is not. All right, guys, that'll do it for this one. Happy holidays. We'll be back tomorrow with something else. I don't know. I'm just kind of winging it right now. And if you can like or subscribe, that would be awesome. Appreciate it, guys. Hope you're all doing well, and you know, keep warm. Okay, get that tree lit or whatever your thing is. All right, happy holidays. Catch you later.